Hey guys, thanks for coming to my channel today. I have lots to do today. It's Monday morning, December 5th, and I have plenty of work here to get through. Not going to get it all done today, but I have to get it done this week. Okay, I got two sets of doubles. I got to break them down and hydro test. Both sets are in for hydro test. The steel set of doubles, I'm going to break them down, and the customer wants to separate the tanks, no longer wants doubles, so I'm going to separate and put new valves in. The set of aluminum doubles, I got to break them down and hydro test, and then the customer is going to put them back together. Next, I have 3 tanks for visual, and then I have 7 for hydro. I also have to work on this long hose. This is a hose for Snuba. The customer wants to use it to put onto that first stage, so I got to make sure that's ready and adapt it for them. Little pony bottle. This one is in for O2 cleaning. Also have this Aqualung BC. I have to service the power inflator and make sure that everything's working fine. And out here in the front room, I also have some more hydros. There's 2 batches of hydros, the nitrox tanks, and then I have this batch of hydros also I got to work on. Now, I'm not going to get all this work done today, but I do have to get it done this week. So let's get started. Start by calibrating the hydro machine. Every day that I want to do some hydro testing, I have to calibrate the hydro machine. So let's get started with that. The cylinder I just put into the well is my calibration cylinder. It's not an actual dive tank. It is an aluminum cylinder, but it's for calibration only. Let's get going with that. Okay, calibration worked out. Now, moving on. Okay, I'm going to undo the set of doubles so I can get them ready for hydro testing. Now, before you remove bands on a set of double, it's customary to take a Sharpie and kind of just outline the bands so when you reassemble, you know where they sit. Now, this is not going to be reassembled. This is going to say separated as 2 cylinders, so I'm not worried about marking it with a Sharpie. When you tighten these bolts on the bands, you don't need to crank them down. They're not heavily torqued. I've seen guys really put some elbow into this and crank them really tight. It's not necessary. If you crank them too tight, you will bend them. You need to just snug them up to where the bands have no movement or play. But you don't have to over crank these, and it's a better idea not to over crank these, because these bands, even though they need to be snug, they don't need to be choking the tank. Because keep in mind, when you fill cylinders, they do stretch. Lift the bands up and over the manifold. And off. Now we can move on to the actual manifold to remove. 7/8 wrench will open up the lock nuts on the manifold. And you can just loosen up these lock nuts. Then you have to rotate the isolator bar and separating the tanks a little bit as you rotate, not too much, and these tanks will start to separate. There it goes. Feels like it's loose. It's loose, and out it comes. The owner of the tanks supplied me with 2 brand new valves that they want to put onto these tanks to make them single. They have the plugs. These 2 valves, if I wanted to use the original 2 valves that were together in the manifold, you can, you just need plugs. But they wanted to go with brand new valves that already have their plugs. In the future, if they want to use this as a set of doubles, they can. All they need is an isolation bar, remove the plugs, and they can do that. Take apart the second set of doubles. This set of doubles will be reassembled as doubles, so I am going to trace the bands with a Sharpie, so when reassembling, it's much easier to align. this bolt looks slightly bent. They might have put a little bit too much torque when tightening the bolt. Okay. Not sure if you can see that on camera, but there is a slight bend to it. Gave me a little bit of trouble getting it out. Definitely recommend putting in new bolts. Upper band and then the lower band. Now, should you put the bands exactly where they were, upper and lower? Sure, why not? Not a bad idea. I'm going to write here lower, and I'll write on this one upper. That's it. Okay, disassembled. Now I'm going to take the valves off, do my visual inspections on both sets of doubles, and clear them for hydro, and moving on. Alright, I noticed on the aluminum set of doubles, the upper band had a little bit of corrosion, obviously underneath. You can see where it is here. But the lower band had a lot of corrosion. It was really heavy on both of them. That's really heavy corrosion. I'm going to have to scrape all of that off before I can hydro test them to make sure there's no pitting underneath that. If there is pitting, I'm going to have to measure the depth of the pitting to see if it's acceptable or not. But yeah, that was a lot of corrosion there. Wow. Okay. Next step on these tanks. All right, let's probe these tanks a little bit further. Let's see what's underneath all this corrosion. I like to spray it, get it wet first. That'll cut back on the dust. And let's see what we got. Unbelievable. It looks pretty good underneath all that crusty oxidation corrosion that was building up under the band. Let's put a little light on it. Sometimes the light will make the shadow of the pit pop out at you. Okay, I don't see any pitting. I'm okay with this. It is darker shade of the aluminum, but that's just the oxidation of it. I need to do the other tank, and then I need to also do the upper band, scrape a little bit of there. But so far, we're okay. Okay, on this yellow hose, I need to make a repair on one of the connections that's leaking. If you've never used a long hose for Snuba, it's actually pretty cool. It's very common for lobster season. I use one. I like it. The idea is you can leave the tank on the boat, or you can float it on the surface, and you can swim around with nothing more than just a hose trailing you and the second stage in your mouth. Pretty cool. Okay, the customer's complaint is that this swivel connection is leaking air. I cannot repair the swivel, but I can replace the connection with new barbs, new fittings. I already cut this side, didn't catch it on camera, but I'm going to show you how I cut the other end off. It's nothing more than using a nice sharp razor. Put a little soap to help you get the joint together. Takes a little effort to push it all in. Both both ends are joined together, I'm ready to go and crimp them. Before starting on the hydro testing, I'm going to go ahead and look and see what's going on with this Aqualung BC. I'm going to tear apart this power inflator. This is usually a quicker fix. Once I get started with the hydro testing, that's going to consume the rest of my day. So let's knock this out. I'm going to go ahead and separate the power inflator from the BC. It'll be much easier to work on. And I'm going to set the BC jacket aside for now. And now it's time to disassemble the power inflator. Here you have the power inflator disassembled. I have it laid out so you can see how the components go in. On the left hand side you have the valve with the valve housing. On top you have the quick disconnect or engagement, and on the right hand side you have the button, starting with the little gray inflator button, and you have here the housing for the plunger. This is a little screen just to avoid any corrosion from getting inside the actual plunger area. Very, very simple. I'm going to go ahead and clean this, ultrasonically clean all the parts, and then put it all back together. Here are the parts after cleaning. Before reassembly, I want to point out that the valve core will not be reused. That is replaced, and there's the new one. I changed the O-rings in the valve housing, also changed the O-ring on the stem, and the rest of the parts are reusable. They're all clean and ready to go. Let's try it out. Feels good, sounds good. Now for the water test. Okay, water test is really important when you're working on power inflators, because you may not hear a tiny leak, but you will definitely see it if you submerge it in the water. All those bubbles that came out, that's just ambient air that came out of the inside of the inflator. I don't see any other bubbles coming out. You do not want to hit the power inflator while it's underwater, because you will get a splash. Time to put the power inflator back onto the BC and check the whole system out for any leaks or any further issues with the BC. I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. This is a little glimpse into my day here at Scuba Tech. Today is pretty much tank day. I also have a lot of regulators you can see behind me. One of these days is going to be regulator day. Stay tuned for more videos coming up. I'm going to have a lot more to post. Today I'm going to keep working on my hydros because I got plenty to do. Thanks again for watching.